let me put this disclaimer out there. Like, the LLC's purpose is really more so to.
People always talk about like getting a LLC, that's the most popular business structure. It's sometimes for some people, it's like some people don't even know what a sole proprietor is. Like, you can start there. You ain't even gotta. So can you talk to me about like some of the other business structures? And you can include some information about the LLCs, but I know like for some people, a LLC may not be the best option, right? It doesn't even really help with tax advantages. You really get like build your business credit and things of that nature, but like S Corp, C Corp, other entities, can you kind of like give us some knowledge on that right quick?
Absolutely. And let me put this disclaimer out there. Like, the LLC's purpose is really more so to limit your liabilities of what you do in your business and in protecting yourself personally. It's just because you have an LLC doesn't mean you're taxed any different way. Actually, the IRS doesn't even really consider it as an entity, meaning that you've never seen a LLC tax return. You don't see, as you're going through the prompts of giving yourself an EIN, you don't really see, oh, hey, you're going to have to now file this LLC tax return. It's really more so there to limit your liability when you're performing business, so that it's not that you're not being personally held liable for your business. It's really more of a legal thing than a tax thing. Now, when we do talk about the tax structures, and you touched on it, of what people are typically in, you have what's called a sole proprietorship. You don't even need to have an LLC for it. The fact that you're starting business, and there's a number of ways of what that could possibly trigger, but basically you starting business in the IRS's eyes, and you making money from that business, and then also you can have expenses. They just look at us like you're a sole proprietor. And so with that, tax-wise, how it works is very similar to what I was saying before. You're taxed on the profit, and you also are subject to what's called self-employment tax. Now, a lot of people don't think about it, but self-employment tax is at Social Security and at Medicare, where you see on the W-2, you don't really pay attention to it, and you see the taxes, and then you see Social Security and the Medicare. Well, as an employee, you're constantly paying that out of your paycheck. So then and that's supplying the Medicare and Social Security. So then the question becomes, okay, if I'm an employee, okay, that's cool for the employees, but what about the business owners? When did we pay? You pay at the end. When you file your tax return, we see what the profit is, and it's okay, you got X amount of income tax on top of that, the self-employment tax. That's the sole proprietorship. Now, the other entities out there that you've heard about are partnership, S Corporation, C Corporation. Partnership, put simply, is if you have more than one business owner one owner says, hey, we're going to go ahead and do business, we're going to be a partnership. Now, with a partnership, tons of flexibility with that. It's kind of crazy. Like, you can have one person have a liability, another person own all the assets. There's a lot of flexibility of what comes with a partnership, but from a tax standpoint, functions similar to it's very similar to sole proprietor. Now we get into the part where you hear a lot of people preaching about S Corps and the benefits of getting that. So an S Corp stands for a small corporation. Sorry, let me take a step back. So with the sole proprietorship, right, when you're filling out your tax return and you're like, okay, where do I put it? Where does it go? Schedule C. Schedule C, it's on your return. You don't have to file a separate tax return for that. Partnership, S Corporation, C Corporations, you're filing a separate tax return from what you have on the personal side. And so with a partnership, you file that a month before the individual. Why? Because it's a pass-through entity, meaning that all the information that's on the partnership is going to flow through and show on your personal.
It's a form K1.
It shows up, right, and it shows up in the form of a K1.
Right.
Same thing as an S corporation. It's a pass-through entity. Now you probably heard a lot of people talk about S corporations because like, oh, it's going to save money on taxes. And what they're talking about, or let me be a little bit more clear at times. Some people are like, oh, you don't have to pay as much, like we don't have to pay as much tax because you don't have to worry about this employment tax. And it's like, no. You do get savings, but you still do have to pay employment tax. What rule is with an S corporation is that you have to give yourself what's called a reasonable compensation. Why? Because the IRS saw if you get an S corp, that self-employment tax, the Social Security and Medicare, you're not getting hit with that in an S corp. So what are people doing? I'll get the S corp, so I don't have to pay much of the taxes. Everything is we got to get a rule, reasonable wage. Got to give yourself a reasonable wage. Now they weren't too specific and kept it broad, so there's really some flexibility of when, how much, et cetera. They give you guidelines and criteria that you should, you leverage as a best practice to be able to set up. But there are savings with an S corporation if you meet those qualifications. And then the last one is a C Corp. The C Corp is when you think of Apple, Amazon.
What does the C stand for?
C Corp. That is a good question. I wonder what does the C stand for?
We gonna throw it up on the screen.
We'll be able to put it up. But basically, that when you see companies that have a C corporation, the real focus of that is for investments, to get investments, to be able to get funding, because it's a lot easier to be able to transaction funding with a C corporation as compared to an S corporation. And so that's where you see, all of the public firms and everything of what you see, they're structured as a C corporation, for that reason.
Dope.